Hi, Lee. Welcome to our show.
Hello, Savannah. Welcome to our show.
How's it going?
Good. Though I like to think of it as all of our shows.
It is. It's our collective show.
All right. Not just you and me.
No, the generations.
But all that have joined us in this journey.
It's like a cloud of saints.
Maybe.
Living undead.
Yeah.
Lee, what are you bringing in today?
What am I bringing in today? I would say that life is full, some days demanding, and a lot going on. How about that?
Not my favorite era.
No. How about you? What are you bringing in?
Today, I met with a wealth manager for the first time.
Well,
So I'm feeling like quite an adult.
Yeah, glad to hear you got some wealth to manage.
Apparently so.
Yeah.
And it felt like a very adult conversation. And I told my husband, I don't feel like we're wealthy enough for this, but it was really helpful information.
Good. Yeah. Once you get an opportunity to find something in pop culture to talk about money, we'll have a really interesting conversation because we've had a lot of very interesting experiences with regard to money and learning a lot about money.
So I need to find maybe a show about someone who has gone bankrupt?
We've never gone bankrupt.
Nice.
But we definitely knew for a lot of years what it was like to really, really scrape by.
Yeah.
And, and then not always to make good decisions about how to scrape by. There are better and worse ways to scrape by.
There really are.
Yeah, and so we had to learn some of the hard way.
Lee, Todd and I were talking about this recently with friends because when Todd came off the road in 2019, he was touring. And so he had toured for 200 plus days that year. And he was just tired of being gone all the time. And so on New Year's Eve, he told the artist that he was working for, this is my last tour. I'm done. Came home and told me. Like, it was one of these moments where for him, it was very intuitive. And then he came home and was like, I'm ready to be home. And it took him 9 months to find a job because even though he was a music director for these massive tours, the music industry is a bubble. So to try to say, hey, I would be really good at X, Y, and Z is really hard to transfer that because he had never had a resume in his life. And we were laughing with our friends when we were recalling this 9 months because he was so desperate at one point that he applied to be a pet cremator transporter.
Oh, my.
So not the cremator itself for the pets, but to pick up the pet to be cremated. And the only job qualification besides having a license must be able to lift 115 pounds. And that's on desperate.
Well, that is desperate. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is desperate. Yeah.
But yeah, I would like to talk about that money stuff.
I look forward to that.
How fun would that be?
Oh, I'm sure it will be just a blast.
I know, but I am really excited to get into our subject today, which does involve TV stuff. But first, let's read some reviews.
Let's do that.
It's been a little bit, and I'm excited. Okay, so someone named Elizabeth wrote in an amazing email and said, for the team at the Subtext, hello. I want to tell you first that I love your show. I listen every week and I'm so grateful for your perspective and thoughts. The differences in Savannah's and Lee's experiences just makes it all the richer. She said, in reference to your recent show on the Super Bowl, I really feel like you missed the subtext of the Bad Bunny performance. And while I'm 100% certain this was not your intended meaning, I think it can come across as dismissive. There was the mention of the electrical poles that you didn't understand instead of engaging with the fact that Hurricane Maria was years ago, and the infrastructure still has not been rebuilt. They weren't out of power for a long time. They are still dealing with power outages. You also seem to completely miss that Bad Bunny and the team who designed the show were highlighting colonial rule and the effects that it's still having. That's part of what's behind his song, Locke le Paso a Hawaii. Oh yeah, which is the song of Bad Bunny saying that Ricky Martin started. Basically being like, we don't want to become like the Hawaiians. Right. Yeah. Okay. She said, I send you all of this in part because I know you both love to dig deeper, love a backstory, and at least Savannah loves a that's not true moment, which is so true. There was so much going on that stage, and it would be a pity not to engage with more of it. So that was the feedback that we got.
I love that. Yes, I felt helpfully directed. And, there were parts of me that I think in a case like that where I don't understand the language and I know that I'm missing all sorts of social cues that also makes me presume I'm missing all sorts of historical cues and context as well.
Yes.
And so it's super helpful for Elizabeth to help us see that. So thank you for that.
I listened back to that episode and thought we did miss so much because I wanted to also get to the other show and I didn't want it to feel like we were favoriting one over the other. But full disclosure, we actually tried to get on a professor who has a class on Bad Bunny to come talk with us about that because we knew we were missing a lot, but it was such a fast turnaround time. It didn't work out. But Elizabeth, great context.
Yep.
We needed it.
Yep.
So helpful.
Thank you.
I have another review. We're going to do a compliment sandwich. So the first review was generally positive. The middle review, ballbuster.
Okay.
Third one, positive again. This is from Greg Prestiman, 5319. I was extremely disappointed in Lee Camp on this podcast. He was smug, glib, condescending, disingenuous, disrespectful, and just a jerk. I don't know if he had too much coffee or needs a bran muffin, but Lee Camp was, quote, unhelpful. I guess professor's going to profess, which I love that last line so much.
I noticed that throughout that you were having a very difficult time not laughing / smirking.
The bran muffin sent me, and then professor's going to profess is so funny. Professor's going to profess actually feels kind of like a compliment.
I do remember years ago, or when I was early in doing podcasting, I talked my way into doing an interview with Ben Cohen of Ben and Sherry's.
Yes.
Have I talked about this before? And I went up to, I was in Vermont and my family was in Vermont. So I stayed around to go up to Burlington to interview Ben Cohen. And he famously did not like college. And so I asked him, I said, well, what advice do you have for professors?
Yeah.
And he said, well, professors need to profess.
Oh my God. Lee.
And then he went on to say, you need to understand that you're an educator. You're in entertainment. And that when you're teaching, you're as much having to entertain as you are to teach. And you have to hold those two things together.
I love that.
So yeah, I found that very helpful. But
how funny if this was Ben.
Yeah. Well,
stalking you all these years.
Yeah.
No, this is Greg.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, I'm sorry that Greg, I'm sorry that I was offensive to Greg. I certainly didn't intend to be. And maybe a little more context would be helpful in some way for me to know how I was coming across that way. Mm-hmm. But I also think that, it's always tricky, isn't it? Mm-hmm. It's hard to know how you say things in a way that are engaging, that won't come off as being I'm trying not to use an expletive for Sophie's sake.
Nice.
Keep you from coming off in those ways. Mm-hmm. But yeah.
Yeah. I know it's really difficult to know how we're being interpreted, and it's a vulnerable spot to be in.
Yeah, it is.
And for you too, your previous podcast history has been primarily interviewing people, correct?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so being in this spot, you have more of a voice and people are seeing a more robust part of your personality, which is vulnerable. It
has been interesting to see that some reviews clearly don't like my voice on this show. And they prefer my voice on No Small Endeavor, which is a voice in which I don't say that much about what I think. And so, but I don't know, to each his own. I hope that whatever's helpful. And I also, you learn early on in doing academics and or any sort of public engagement that no one is for everybody. And so it's sometimes you can feel sad about that fact, but that's kind of just the way it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, as you know, this podcast is literally kicking me in the butt. So with our reviews,
I will say, and I'm hesitant even to say this because again, I don't exactly know what I said that
was
bothered
condescending.
This particular reviewer, but and so I'm not saying this in response to that as much as this is tangentially related. And that is that you have to, I think anytime you try to do something in public, you have to learn to have some ease at people being upset with you.
Yeah.
And this past Sunday night, I was emceeing an event that had a bunch of Nashville music people in it, and Vince Gill
Lee, you can say you hosted the Grammys. It's fine.
Yeah. I didn't. But I was visiting with Vince Gill, who I've gotten to be some friends with through the years. And I said something to him about, beginning to get more people poking at me. And he was kind of surprised, I think, that maybe I said beginning to get more instead of maybe having had it all along.
Yeah.
But then at some point he said something like, well, look, if you're not pissing off half the world, then you're doing something wrong.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I just wrote that down and stuck it on my bathroom countertop because it's just a good reminder of, you're not for everybody. And part of it doesn't have to be because the people that you've pissed off are wrong, as much as you just may not be something for everybody. So
yeah. Which does make me want to tear my skin off, but that's totally okay. Yeah, it made me laugh when you said some people don't like my voice on this podcast, but the reason they like my voice and the others because I'm not saying anything. That's so savage. We'll read my negative reviews probably next time or the time after, but some people just don't like my voice at all, which that's okay because I think the gift that I'm also learning is that I'm not for everyone either. And I think that for me, I have always associated being for everyone with being safe. But I actually think that now I'm realizing that if I'm for everyone, then it means that I've dulled myself down to such a capacity that I'm not me anymore.
Yeah.
So I would rather be me and for some people than not me and for everyone.
Right. Yeah. That's well said. Yeah.
Okay. Let's start with our end with a positive review because that was a lot.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
The sandwich.
Let's do the
Get back to the bread.
Let's get back to the manna because I'm dying. Okay, so this one was an email that we got that says, last Saturday's podcast included an interesting question about giving up self to be in a relationship. Oh, so this is in reference to our Valentine's Day episode. I think about this question in the context of Bowen theory, which describes the difference between core self, which is the part of us rooted in deeply held principle, and conditional self, the part of us that comes and goes depending on context, etc. An example of conditional self is that I am from Southeast Missouri and I am a fan of the St. Louis Cardinals. If I had been born somewhere else, I probably would have cheered for another team. It might be interesting to consider the podcast question in the context of core and conditional self. Yeah. Had you heard of that before?
I had not I've heard of Bowen theory and I've read some in that family systems field a little bit. But I didn't remember that distinction. And I actually think that email actually came into me first.
Yes.
And I replied and saying that that was precisely a distinction like that I was wishing I had ready at hand, and I didn't have it when we taped that interview. But I think that's a very helpful way to think about that. There's some sort of distinction between things that are sort of accidental about us that can easily be mitigated, ameliorated, set aside as is needed or as is helpful. And then there's some sort of core part of who we are, our convictions, the things that make us up that should be yielded or given up after much greater scrutiny and maybe never.
Agreed. Yeah, I love that. I've never heard that language, never heard of the theory, but I thought it was such a helpful email to get.
I did tell him, I think, that, yes, of course, that if he had been born anywhere else, he wouldn't be rooting for the Cardinals.
Oh my gosh, Lee, that's so intense. Baseball drama. I love it. Okay, on that note, let's start the show. Welcome to the Subtext, where we go beneath the headlines and beyond the obvious. I'm Savannah Locke.
And I'm Lee C. Camp.
Mr. Camp.
Mr. Camp.
All of a sudden, you are leading a camp when you are called Mr. Camp. You are in charge of like an all-boys development wilderness camp in North Carolina.
This is stressing me out. Get on with it.
Imagine if you like what we're doing and want to help us get the show in front of more people so Lee can go live out his dream as Mr. Camp, please do us a favor by following and rating it wherever you listen. If you leave us a review, we might read it on the show. Give us 5 stars, hype us up. And if you want to watch full episodes, you can find that on YouTube and Spotify. You can follow the show at The Subtext Show, me at Savannah_Locke, and Lee at Lee C. Camp. And if I'm so sorry, but what if your Instagram was Mr. Camp? I'm screaming. Wouldn't that be so funny? Okay. And if you have any questions or suggestions for the show, just DM us on Instagram at The Subtext Show. Lee, have you ever seen an episode of America's Next Top Model?
You don't have to ask that question. Of course, no, I have not.
What were you doing in the early to mid 2000s?
Early to mid 2000s. Early to mid 2000s. I was a rookie professor trying to learn how to teach. I was learning to profess. I was a professor learning to profess. Yeah.
And yeah, because you would have been in Nashville at that point.
Correct. I started my teaching career full time in 1999.
Oh my gosh, Lee.
Were you born then?
I was born. I was a young 8-year-old in Boston still. Okay, so you were not watching America's Next Top Model.
That's correct. I was not.
Good to know.
Yeah.
Do you know anything about the show?
It's a reality TV show about maybe trying to make the cut to become a model, I think.
Yes, that's what it is. So it was kind of before reality TV was all over the place. Now there's a reality show for basically everything.
Yes.
But at that point, it was fairly new for its time. Yeah, it was pretty forward thinking. So a supermodel named Tyra Banks, who I'm guessing you've heard of, she started a show that was basically like American Idol. It was around the same time American Idol started too, where they did a nationwide search and said, hey, do you want to be a model? Come on this show and we're going to put you through all of these challenges and photo shoots. And if you win, we're going to give you a contract with a top modeling agency. And we're going to put you up in New York for a while and give you some money to get you a head start in your career. So very big prize package for any aspiring models. So people from all over the country applied and it ended up taking off like wildfire, but apparently not in your house.
Not in our house.
You also, to be fair, were not the target demographic.
I'm sure that I was not.
So I grew up watching this show. Very, very popular. And yeah.
And how old were you when you started watching the show?
I would have been in middle school to high school.
Okay.
Yeah, which we'll get into why that was probably not that great and damaging. So when this show was happening in general, when it comes to models and supermodels in the US, there was one specific look that everyone wanted, which was very thin and very white and blonde. So that was kind of what the beauty standard was. Tyra Banks, who is a Black woman, was really wanting to push back against that. This is, once again, believing the best narrative, but she was wanting to push back against this and go on a nationwide search to try to get more diverse forms of beauty that could potentially start infiltrating these systems and have, a more expansive view of what a model could be.
Okay.
This show had a lot of toxic parts too. So even though I think that in some ways she was probably trying to do something really good for her industry, there were a lot of toxic things that happened on the show that over the years have been coming out through social media. So during COVID, when everyone was just watching TV all day, did you watch TV during COVID or were you just reading books?
Yeah, we've watched lots of Netflix and all that kind of stuff through the years.
But did you watch Tiger King? Did you get into the COVID phase?
We did not watch. I think I watched the first episode of Tiger King and thought that was enough for me.
It was a lot, to be fair. Well, Tiger King kind of took over, but also America's Next Top Model had a huge resurgence because everyone was at
COVID.
Home. Yes.
Okay. Huh.
And so because it had this huge resurgence, people started realizing how toxic some of the things were on this show. And then different contestants who had been on the show started using their social media to speak out about toxic experiences they had.
Interesting.
So I'm going to give you a broad overview of those toxic experiences, and then we'll talk about it. On the show, they would do photo shoots that were very normal in the first few seasons. So just you're on the beach, whatever, normal supermodel photo shoots. But then as the show starts taking off, they have to increase the drama to keep their viewers growing. So they started doing very controversial photo shoots. One example is they did ethnicity swapping. So where they would take a white blonde woman and then they would turn her into a Black woman for a photo shoot. or
through makeup or something.
Through makeup and through hair and stuff like in outfits and stuff. And they would take like a girl from Iowa and they would make her look like a woman from India. And all of this would be done in like a very kitschy sort of way where it was like the theme would all be very stereotyped.
You're
and
playing off of tropes.
Exactly. So they did that not once, but twice over the years.
And what years was that being done?
This would have been like in the early to mid 2000s.
And people didn't like lose their minds over that?
People did not lose their minds over it. They did once COVID hit. And they rewatched it and said, this is absolutely crazy. So another photo shoot example is that they went to like homeless camps and the models would dress up like poor people basically and would have like heroin needles and stuff and have like marks in their arms for their photo shoot and be taking pictures with real homeless people. So do you see how this is a different era of television? How that would never fly today?
I would hope it wouldn't fly today.
Okay.
And I don't see how it flew then. I mean, it strikes me as perverse.
Yeah, there was a lot of crazy photo shoots that they would do. And then on the second side of things, they were also very critical of women's bodies. So very tiny people, the judges would call fat. And they would also basically like zoom in on these girls' stomachs and be like, you're never going to be able to be a model if you have this fat on you. You look like a busted can of biscuits. Like literally using language like that, very critical against these women's bodies. And despite the fact that these women did want to be models, they went in kind of blindsided by how harsh these judges were towards their bodies, which led to a lot of eating disorders. So it was like a very dark thing happening behind the scenes, but also in front of the scenes. So there was a Netflix show that came out to expose all of this called Reality Check Inside America's Next Top Model that exposed all of these wild photo shoots and all of the chaos that was happening behind the scenes. And my question when I was watching it was, when someone has helped shape culture that caused harm, so in this case, Tyra Banks or the television show, whether it was intentionally or not, because Tyra Banks held onto in this show that she was just trying to create like a more diverse view of beauty through the modeling industry through the show. What does it mean for them to take responsibility for their actions, even if at the time people were not criticizing those things? So at the time, no one threw up a red flag and said, hey, this ethnicity swap is weird. Or nobody threw up a red flag and said, hey, we probably shouldn't be criticizing these women's bodies on television. But now we know better. So what would it look like for people like the producers of the show and Tyra as the host and creator to take responsibility for that?
Can we back up a
Yes.
little? So, I mean, for me, this raises, before we get to your very good question, it raises the question for me of, is the thing called reality TV perhaps perverse in and of itself?
Nice. Mm-hmm.
Because clearly the little I've watched of reality TV stuff, which is not very much, but the degree to which I've seen it, it always seems to me like the whole thing is a big game, right? It's not reality in any way, shape, form, or fashion, because the presence of a camera changes everything. And because of the presence of the camera, you're always posing and posturing. And moreover, that sort of genre seems to laud all sorts of behavior and storylines that, in my mind, lack the sort of moral transformation that I would be much more interested in. I mean, so for example, right, someone who's going to be calm, kind, patient, that's not going to work on reality TV. It will never work on reality TV, right? Think about the fruit of the Spirit: love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, gentleness, faith, self-control. That's not going to work on reality TV. And so long before you get to, these kinds of questions, it's like, why do we celebrate this sort of genre, which is just setting us up to celebrate a form of storytelling that doesn't serve us well?
Yeah, so you have an issue in general, not just with for this context, the America's Next Top Model photo shoots. But what you're saying is zoom out. Why did it take off so much in the first place? Like, what does that say about us? And why do we continue to reward crazy reality television?
Right.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Love is Blind is a reality TV show too that Todd and I were watching yesterday. And there's this huge joke right now because there's a couple that genuinely just loves each other and they're not dramatic. And everyone's like, where are they? Because they're getting no airtime because it's just a peaceful relationship.
Precisely.
Which agrees with your point.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So what would you have to say? Like, is there any reality TV that you think could be potentially good?
Yes, but on the whole, it's not commercial success.
Right.
Like public television.
Like, yes.
I mean, public television is reality TV, but it's not a commercial success. And so what we call reality TV is not reality. It's a farce on reality. It's a farce of reality. It's a farcical form of reality. And so, so I just have problems with all that stuff.
Yeah. Agreed.
Generally speaking, the bit of the glimpses of the genre I've seen always leave me sad.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Given that it exists.
Okay.
And accepting that for now, let's operate inside the framework, which is that Tyra Banks and the show took off and did harm.
Yep.
And now, what do they do about that to remediate that harm? Like, in your view, what is the best way, and not just for them specifically, but for anyone? Looking back, let's say that it's you, that 10 years ago you did things that nobody really raised a red flag about. Now you're like, wow, that would never stand today because this was harmful. How do you really take ownership over that and make that right?
I mean, I think that I would take an apology or something like that seriously if somebody owned, we did these serious harms. These were, and if one needs to say, these were the ways I was trying to do something that was helpful and constructive, A, B, and C, but I failed to see D, E, and F, and nonetheless I hurt M, N, O, and P.
Yeah.
And I apologize without qualification for X, Y, and Z. I mean, in my, and then maybe you go a little further and say, because of that, we're not going to continue to use this genre that manipulates viewers and makes and commodifies the emotions of the people who are in front of the camera. Because don't you think in many ways that's what reality TV is? You're commodifying people's lived experience and their emotional sensitivities. And because you sent me the trailer to this, and it's just a very short trailer, but it's like, man, they're manipulating people's emotional experience for commercial good. And that's just, I find that repugnant.
I think what I heard from you in your repentance / ownership monologue that you gave is naming reality without qualifications.
Yes.
Does that feel true?
Yes. I mean, and I will say, it's always hard, the tiny taste of dealing with when you mess up and you need to say something publicly. That is always tricky because it's like, who are you apologizing for?
Yep.
Who do you have the right to apologize for? All of that is very tricky. And I don't want to act like it's not tricky. And it takes a lot of prudence, surprisingly.
Our favorite word.
Yeah. But some sort of ownership is important and some sort of real commitment to try to find ways not to continue to do that kind of harm.
Yeah. So on Reality Check, which is this expose documentary on Netflix, which you watched the trailer to, Tyra, who started the show, and then the producer of the show, and then the three main kind of like co-hosts of the show were all interviewed. And I walked away from watching the episodes kind of shocked by the lack of accountability or the lack of responsibility that they took over their actions. Specifically with Tyra, she kept on basically being like, you have to see all the good that I was also doing. And then some of the models actually did affirm that and say, like, without Tyra, I would have never had a chance at my modeling career. And I think that what they were trying to do is maybe humanize some of it a little bit. So instead of it being like Tyra's the villain or the producer's the villain and they were all trying to ruin these people's lives, I think that they were trying to give maybe an opportunity for them to be able to share a more human, complicated story. But for me, I was left wanting because I thought, yeah, and all of these people had like really, really rough experiences. And to me, you're in charge. So the buck sort of stops with you. And you need to say, knowing what I know now, I would have not handled it that way or something to that effect. But I think there was no responsibility taken. And that confused me.
Yeah. Yeah. After I watched the trailer, there was another one about, like the top 10 explosive moments in America's Top Model that I watched.
Nice.
And I think some of the things that they asked of people, like including dental procedures and all this kind of stuff is just, I don't know. It's kind of like the peak of, again, commodifying people. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. But, and here I'm maybe wandering into territory I ought not wander into, but so let me pose it as a question. Mm-hmm. What do you make of the industry of modeling itself?
Oh my gosh, Lee, what a journey we're about to go on. I think that I've seen it used in really positive ways and negative ways.
Can you give me a brief example?
Okay, so I will tell you, this might be a little vulnerable for this show. Just see how this hits you. So when I watched this show, because I watched it growing up, my friends and I would literally sit around the television and watch this show happen when we were young. And even though I think Tyra's intention was to maybe diversify what beauty can look like, there was still a very narrow view at the time of like, you have to be super thin, you have to be very tall, long hair, whatever. And that definitely informed in a negative way how I felt about myself. So I remember the first time that I went to the mall and I saw like this America's Next Top Model banner or something, maybe in front of Victoria's Secret. And I realized my body doesn't look like, I was like 13. So I was so young. My body doesn't look like that. And I went home and I got duct tape and I duct taped to my stomach to try to make it flat because that was the view that I had of someone and what was beautiful. So I think in that way, I was malformed by the modeling industry. And once I got into college and older and started seeing now there really is more diversity in modeling and acting in the industry, et cetera. And I think seeing people who do look like me being celebrated as beautiful can be positively impactful to me. So I think about like Florence Pugh. I don't know if you know her. She's an actress. She was in Oppenheimer. She was in Little Women. An amazing actress. She was also in Dune, I think, something like that. And she is a very normal sized human. And I remember seeing her on the red carpet in my mid-20s and she looked just like me. And I was like, oh my gosh. And she's so beautiful. And she has this amazing dress on. And seeing someone who was like so beautiful and seen and celebrated in that way was very impactful to me in a positive way as well. So I think for me, when I think of maybe modeling or acting, which I guess I'm associating in the same way, just like as entertainment, where your looks really matter. I think that I've seen it in both good and negative ways. Would we be better without any of it? Perhaps, but that's not reality. So that's what I think about.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I thank you for your sharing and the vulnerability of that.
Yeah.
And I find that story fascinating, both sides of that fascinating. And I sound like a broken record today, but I think that commodification of people happens in so many different ways. And so clearly modeling is not on its own, acting is not on its own in commodification of people. But it does seem like a really interesting specimen of commodification of bodies, especially in modeling.
Yeah.
And so I think at a minimum, we should be cautious or aware of the way in which commodification is occurring.
Can you think of a positive instance for you that you've seen it done in like a beautiful and respectful and fun and...
No.
Okay. Yeah.
And I'm not trying to sound glib.
Condescending professor, Mr. Camp.
I'm not trying to be glib, but but that's just, that's my experience. No.
Totally. Yeah. And I also wonder if there's a male female thing too.
Yeah.
Like, because I think what you're doing, and I want to think more about this because you did this both with reality TV and now with modeling, where I just assume the systems exist and I'm operating inside of them. So I'm just basically trying to find like the good and the bad within systems. But what you're doing is criticizing why they exist in the first place. And I need to be thinking about that more because I wasn't.
Yeah. And maybe I need to be thinking about some acceptance of systems.
Oh my God. Maybe so. Maybe it was something.
But maybe not.
Yes. So to close out, I kind of want to talk about assuming these systems exist.
You're going to insist on the
We're going to insist on the existence of these systems.
Go for it.
And I want to offer some feedback or thoughts around how we could think about repentance and repair as it relates to things that we've done that have maybe harmed other people. Because that was my takeaway from this America's Next Top Model doc, was that Tyra and the other folks did not repent or repair. To me, they just sort of deflected responsibility. And do you know what I thought of for this?
What?
Zacchaeus.
Well, there you got somebody with a system, a major system, and he doesn't undo the system.
Do you want to talk about the system?
Sure.
Zacchaeus was a
I know, isn't it so awful with that little Sunday school song that misses the
everything about
systemic import of what's going on there?
So Zacchaeus was a tax collector. Why was that a big deal?
Yeah, but so he was a sort of, he would have been seen as betraying his people for the imperialist pigs.
Yep.
And that he not only has betrayed his people, but he has allowed himself to be the mechanism of the empire continuing to oppress the poor of his own kinsmen. And so it would have been...
Can I translate that for normal people? That was a lot. I loved it. And I'm thinking of my friends. Okay. So Zacchaeus as a tax collector would basically be in relationship with Rome, the empire.
He would have been collecting taxes for Rome.
So Rome would have told Zacchaeus, hey, we want $100, but if you get 150, keep the extra 50. So Zacchaeus would go to all of these Jewish people, and of which he was one, and be like, hey, you owe me X amount, and add a percentage on top of it just to keep for himself. So he would have been seen as a traitor because he not only was exploiting his own people for cash, but he was also in cahoots with Rome. Yeah. And Lee said that in the most beautifully academic way.
Well, and it's also, I think, crucial to understand that, 90%, if I remember, from seminary reading on the sociology of this stuff 35 years ago, 90% of the Jewish people would have been desperately poor.
Yes.
And so they're getting stomped on by the empire in the first place. Yep. And the tax bill would have been taking food literally out of their children's mouths.
Yes.
And so then you've got their kinsman who's adding this extra, patting his own pocket on top of it. So it's just insult on top of injury.
Horrible.
Yeah.
So Zacchaeus climbs up this tree when Jesus is walking through town, and Jesus looks to Zacchaeus and says, I'm going to your house today. We all know the story, or you might not. If you don't know the story, Jesus goes to Zacchaeus' house, and then Zacchaeus, after a conversation with Jesus, says, hey, I'm going to give back whatever I've taken from these people 4 times over, and I'm going to give half of my possessions away to the poor. And to that, Jesus says, salvation has come to this house today. I always think about this as a great example of repentance and repair.
Yeah, it is a great example of repentance and repair because it's facing the way in which he had participated in the system in a way that had done great damage, and then is trying to rectify it and to take seriously the responsibility to make amends for the damage that he's done.
Yes.
It's not empty words, but honest words followed up by action.
It's not a PR statement.
Yeah.
You're really getting in there and doing the work to repair these things.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when I think about this with Tyra, et cetera, and honestly, it sounds like with most reality TV producers, it's like once you see the damage that has been done, to me, when you're called to the carpet, the best way forward is repenting and repairing.
Yeah. Right.
Per Zacchaeus.
Per Zacchaeus. Well said.
Well, that's what we'll end on, a theological note. a theological note. With me.
With Savannah.
Exactly. Great job.